welcome to My New Day. Today we are talking about best friends, best lovers. It is Friday, Fight for Your Family Fridays, and we are going to be talking about marriage. Now, it doesn't matter whether you are married or not, because the principles that we're going to be talking about really apply to all relationships.
Yeah, and to have a healthy relationship, there are 4 key elements to that. And it's similar to, the 4 legs of a chair. Remove one of them, and you can balance. Remove 2 of them, yeah, and you're having real difficulty. One of them, and the relationship will fail. But the thing is, these 4 elements are this: knowledge and understanding, getting to know the other person, being able to understand the other person. That makes for a healthy, right relationship. Another one is respect and honor, probably the one that is most neglected. And another is love, and love is the most enduring. And then the 4th one is one that we'll be talking about today, and that is trust. And trust tends to be the most fragile. So stay with us, because I want you to thrive in life and love. We'll be right back. In today's program, we're going to talk about trust and how to begin to create an environment where trust can be restored. Oftentimes, we view trust as the thing that is earned, something that is deserving of the, that the other person is deserving of, is trust. And I understand that element, when there's been hurt, where there's been pain, those types of things. But what I tend to find is that trust is far more of a gift rather than something that is earned. Trust is something that I'm able to give the other person rather than something that they need to perform for. Because the question is when is enough enough? When are they performing enough? Have they done enough? Have they repented enough? Have they been sorry enough? When's enough enough? And trust tends to be much more of a gift.
And we learned that by experience, because as we went through crisis in our own marriage, things changed in our marriage regarding trust. As you can imagine, I betrayed Bob in our marriage, and I committed the sin of adultery. And so immediately, all of the boundaries that were really quite free up till that point of our marriage suddenly became very closed in, and we became very protective of what we had. Even though we were in so much pain with each other, we got boundaries in place to protect us of how we would, I'll just talk about the boundaries that were instantly put in place. First of all, I was to have no contact with this other person at all. 0 contact, not in any way. The relationship was over. And you might think, well, Audrey, that is so obvious, but you would be surprised how many people think, well, I can remain friends, I can remain in contact, I can remain in this kind of a relationship. No, if you have been involved in an affair with anybody, you need to stop contact completely. And then especially, I'm talking about boundaries that are put on right at the beginning. So that boundary was put in place. The next boundary that was put in place in my life was get rid of anything that guy has given you. Get rid of any gifts, any notes, any reminders, anything in the house that reminds you of that person. Even if they are worth money, don't worry about it. Get rid of them. That was a boundary that we put in place. And then thirdly, one of the boundaries that we did was Bob said, I need to know if he were to come to our door, exactly what would happen.
And so these are different things that I needed for security, because the boundaries had been violated. The places that brought us security were now removed and torn down. So here we were beginning to reestablish or build trust in our relationship again. But it ultimately culminated in a moment or in time where it was like, you know what? She'll never perform enough. She'll never be good enough. So when will you give trust away again? So what I want to do is take a moment and talk about what is it that begins to destroy the boundaries in our lives, that allow us, that tend to allow us to go outside, those boundaries, the things that you find yourself doing that you never ever dreamed yourself or you thought was imaginable or possible for you to do. For Audrey, this was the furthest thing from her mind, but all of a sudden she finds herself enslaved in an affair. How do these kinds of things begin to happen? Now, we're going to speak about one in particular. I mean, there's many different contributors, and elements that are a part of it. But one in particular is our definition of how we view pain and pleasure.
And that was very important to us, because even as you hear me talk about these boundaries, you might be thinking, because you've been following us for these 8 weeks, is, well, Audrey, that sounds like behavior modification. You're just you're being behaved. You're doing what is asked of you, and you're doing what's right. Well, sometimes behavior modification is absolutely necessary. There's nothing wrong with it.
Simply because what you're doing is you're rewriting, number one, your mind. You're renewing your mind. You're rewriting the neural pathways in your mind. Okay, you have just gone crazy, those types of things. But as well, you're writing new truth upon your heart. You see, and you need to begin to gather new evidence, and you need to begin to persuade your heart of what is true. And so it's very, very necessary, and it's even honoring of the other person, in the couple, where, hey, I'm willing to walk this way. I'm willing, to do this for you.
Yes, because the lifestyle that has brought you to that place obviously needs to be changed, because it brought you to a scary place. Something wrong or a violation takes place in a marriage, that means something led up to it, which means when we love, we'll always protect. So in protection of what we have in our marriage, what can I do? So yes, boundaries are so important.
Very, very important. And let me give this as just a word of hope and an encouragement. If you're going through a hard time, or you're just, you have found yourself just kind of settled in and you want to move forward, or you feel as though you've lost a little bit, and you begin to look into the rearview mirror of life, and it's like, I'd really like to get back to that. I'd really like to experience that, those types of things. The thing is, I need you to move forward.
Yes.
What God has for you is yet before you. We can remember all these wonderful provisions of God. We can, bring to our memory and recall all of the miracles that took place in our lives. But as God spoke to the children of Israel, He says this. He says, now remembering this, He says, okay, good. Now forget all of that. He says, because behold, I do a new thing.
Yes.
Can't you see it? I've begun already.
Yes.
I'm doing something new in your midst. You see, in Audrey and I's marriage, what led up, or the marriage that we had prior to the crisis, was only sufficient to bring us to that point. Why would I ever want to go back? Because what we had was insufficient to take us to where we needed to be.
Yes.
And so today we're going to begin to talk about, some of these principles that will begin to propel your life forward, because God's doing something new in your life. God's doing something new in your marriage, and new is simply this, never seen before.
Yes.
You're always, hoping and wanting to get back to the sweet by and by. You want to go back to, the yesteryears. And it's like, no, there's so much more yet ahead of you. So you need to, again, begin to recapture the hopes and the dreams of your heart.
Yes.
Because that will begin to restore the laughter, the spontaneity, the vision, the joy. The very purpose of why you came together was to what? Experience life in a way you couldn't by yourself.
And the very purpose for establishing boundaries is so that you can enjoy life within your boundaries. Boundaries were not meant to imprison anyone. They were meant to put a safety guard in place so that you can really enjoy being best friends and best lovers within that boundary. There is a place where boundaries are put in the motivation of fear. That is never right. When you are in fear of what your husband will do, and it's natural if there's been a betrayal of any kind, but yet that is something that is a heart condition. Say, God, help us to put boundaries in place, not out of fear, but out of love. There's a big difference.
And like we spoke in our previous program, where there's fear, there's control.
And that's not what boundaries are for.
And so those are, easy indicators to begin to see.
Yes.
And so what we need to do is experience the Father's love.
So in relation to boundaries, I put all the behavior modification ones in place. I was so scared of losing my husband and my family and my children. I would have done anything Bob would have asked me to. I will not contact him. I will not do this, and I will not do that. However, I knew enough to know that that wouldn't change my heart. And I don't want to just try hard to be a good girl. I want to live out of a heart that is pure and right, and out of the abundance of my heart, my life will be effortless. The victory will be effortless. And so I remember in those several months following the affair, during the first part of our healing, I prayed, I basically begged God. I said, God, I want to hate what I did, because I knew that that's the only place that there would be freedom. Because when I participated in that sin, the reason I did so is I believed that it would bring benefit to my life. I was drawn to that sin because I believed in my heart that it was filling a place and bringing me pleasure. And so when I have been participating with that and agreeing with what's written in my heart for month after month after month, I had to be careful to write the truth on my heart and remove that lie. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because I know so many people who are trying to live a behaved life, but they still love the pornography, but they're trying so hard not to, trying so hard. I don't want to live my whole life trying really hard not to commit adultery again. I want to have an understanding of what really took place from the depths of my heart. And so the Lord gave me in those months, I just know God loves me. He loves you. He wants to journey us to a place of freedom. And where there are boundaries, remember, there is freedom. And my boundaries were tight because I knew my heart wasn't in a good place. But He healed my heart so my boundaries could fill me up with, give me spacious place and room to enjoy my husband and enjoy my life. So what happened was, I had a belief, we're removing lies from our heart. That's heart transformation. My belief was that sin equals pleasure. And I'm sure you could agree with me. Well, yeah, sin equals pleasure. Doesn't everyone know that? Well, actually, that is a total and complete lie. As human beings, if we were to have a big pile of pain here and a big pile of pleasure here, we will automatically always gravitate towards the pleasure, and we will avoid pain at all costs. Your very life is the sum total of everything that you believe in your heart. The life that you're living right now is the byproduct of what you believe. And if you believe that something will bring you pleasure, you will gravitate towards it. And it'll be very hard not to.
And if you believe that something will bring pain, you'll also avoid it. So when you begin to view each other as a pain, guess what? You stay late at work. You go and you hibernate in your office, and you turn on the computer. You veg out in front of the TV. Whatever it might be. But when you begin to view each other as a pain or as a problem, you'll avoid that every time, and you're going to go and try and find something that will bring pleasure.
And even in our Christian walk, I mean, when I grew up, it was more like, oh, sin is pleasure, so I'm going to get saved. I'm going to go to the altar of Jesus and give and die to self and say, I'm sorry, God, for going after pleasure. Please forgive me. I will live my life of surrender and death to self. Do you guys hear what's going on here?
Just that whole morbid type of thing.
Think about it.
God is the most boring person around.
Right, that's right. And if I'm going to follow Him, I will miss all the pleasure that all my friends are getting. That's what we believe.
And this is the perspective that many of our young people have today. Why would I want to come to God? He's a buzzkill.
So why don't we write on our hearts about what true pleasure is? Do you want to know what true pleasure is? It's having peace in your mind. Do you know what peace in your mind and joy unspeakable?
Not having to hide secrets. Not trying to squander. Not this sense of lack.
Can you imagine what it feels like with Bob and I? You've heard us read our mail in front of each other. There are no secrets between us. That is an amazing place to live. To know each other's every secret, be able to talk about any subject and still love each other. That's amazing pleasure. And the Bible even says at the right hand of the Father are pleasures forevermore. And I'm telling you, I like fun. Pleasure is one thing. God wired me for fun. I used to apologize for it, but then I realized that's me. God wired me that way. And He laughs with me. He makes me laugh. I laugh when I'm all by myself. It's good because that happens to be my personality. But I'm telling you, there is nothing more pleasurable, especially the peace in my mind, because fear has overcome me most of my life. But I can go to sleep at night knowing that, whatever the economics do, whatever the security does, whether we have jobs or not, whether we have money come in, I have peace in my mind because my God is my security. My God is my protector, my provider. I don't put my trust in what this world can give. And you know what's even better? One day I get to see Jesus face to face, and that is going to be a reunion where he's going to grab me in his arms and say, well done, my good and faithful servant. I am looking forward to that day. And I'll tell you, that is pleasure for eternity that nobody could ever take away from me.
What are some of the things that would cause us to violate, the boundaries that we set in our marriages? That would cause us to go outside, that would cause us to, introduce a whole lot of pain in them. And one of them happens to be busyness. And just in today's program, I just simply want to say to you, beware of the barrenness that busyness brings into our lives. We can be so busy, and being consumed about so many things, but what it can do is bring a barrenness. And we can be so consumed about doing so many good things. And we, in our religious systems, we're experts at this.
Yes.
We've got our jobs, and then we got our church responsibilities, we got our kids and their responsibilities, and we just keep heaping it on,
True.
thinking that will what? Satisfy God, put me in his good books,
Make me a
whatever,
success.
whatever it might be,
Yes.
That this is going to bring pleasure, and all of a sudden you begin to what? Despise, resent, and then you begin to get revengeful, and what do? You try to find pleasure. And the very thing, that was at one time in your life extremely pleasurable, all of a sudden becomes a pain. You see? And then you go and you isolate yourself thinking, I just need to get away. I just need to have time alone. I don't need to be, in this marriage. I don't need to be a part of this fellowship. I just need to get away, because everybody, and all that we have done is experienced the barrenness that busyness brings to our life.
And busyness doesn't just happen with activity. Busyness goes on with your own mind and your own thoughts and what's going on, because it doesn't, I can be not, and I can still have lack of peace even when I'm not busy. And so there is no gift more precious than Jesus being the good shepherd, where he says, I'm going to lead you to still waters and to green pastures. I mean, if you're busy in your mind or in your activity, there's nothing that says pleasure to me more than, are you serious? You're going to lead me to some fields of soft grass. And that's what's taking place in your secret place in your heart. And nobody can take that away from you either.
But where there's busyness, you're lacking fruitfulness.
Yes.
You see, we can have high activity. Audrey and I, we're living in a season right now where, we are active.
Yes.
Our schedule is full, but I refuse to be busy.
And I refuse to sacrifice peace in my mind. Now, I'll also say, just to cover up, to make it super clear about this pain and pleasure thing, every single sin results in pain. Period. I don't care what it is, addiction. It says it's going to satisfy you, but I promise you it won't. And so if you could rewrite the truth on your heart that sin is pain, that's what I did. I said, God, I want to hate sin. And the only way I can do that is associate it with pain. And so I say sin is pain, and therefore it's going to be effortless now to avoid it. Because if I truly believe that every sin will cause pain, even though it promises some kind of a benefit that's worth the sacrifice, if I can believe that it'll ultimately bring pain, I will avoid it. And that sounds effortless, doesn't it? Like, let's just not even
So
want
today, we're choosing to walk in righteousness as it should be, you see, in relationships with each other. And what we want to do is settle trust with
Yes.
one another. And these are the things that attack and erode that intimacy and that trust between one another. Let me encourage you to do this in building trust with one another, and that is to put words of appreciation out there. I appreciate this about you. There's so many things that I appreciate about Audrey, but very few things do I ever acknowledge with my words. You see, there's so many things that just really I just expect her to do. You see, there were many, many things. I'm so sorry. There are so many things that initially, when we first got married, they would amaze us about each other. It's like, wow, you know? And now, you know, over time, it becomes what? Expected. And we have no words of appreciation.
And I think words of appreciation, especially to
Are
a woman,
huge.
it just completely melts my heart when Bob gives me words of appreciation. But there was another thing that Bob gave me that I will never forget. After the boundaries were in place, the affair had taken place, the boundaries were in place, I'd asked God, please, transform my heart. You know, write the truth on my heart, that I want to hate sin. And as we developed him there, I remember the time when I had tried so hard to earn Bob's trust for so many years. And then one day he says, you know what, Audrey? I think this is ridiculous, because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, when is it going to be enough that I can trust you again? And he says, today I am choosing and I am acknowledging that I'm giving you a present, and it's the gift of trust. I trust you again. That was a present from Bob that I will never forget.
Love you, hon.
Okay.
We'll take a short break. We'll be back to close the program right after this.
As we apply this to our life today of being best friends and best lovers, I just want to thank you for investing this amount of time into your marriage, because I know that the benefits are going to amaze you.
As well, I'm hoping that you're communicating, using words,
Yes.
talking, you know, with each other. And just before the break, I said, you know, we need to attach more words to
Yes.
the things that we think about. And also, we need to be extremely intentional. You know, as we bring healing and restoration to our marriage, begin to be extremely intentional about what you think about. What are you seeing? You know, what are you listening to? You know, where are you in activity, you know, in your life? Where are you going? Be extremely intentional in your words.
And as far as homework goes, as far as applying this to life, something that Bob and I do is called love, value, and appreciate. And I'll tell you, when we take time of just 1 minute, we will sit down and for 1 minute, we will take turns, and Bob starts and he says, Audrey, I love, value, and appreciate.
So many things.
And he gets very specific.
You know, because we tend to be very general and very vague, but if we can begin to be extremely specific about the details of how we love, value, and appreciate each other. For me, when she does the laundry, I love it. You know, and when she knows that, then she knows that she has value and that she's being appreciated.
And I remember that
You
he
see?
appreciates that, because he put words to that. Next time I do the laundry, I'm like, wow, he
I
actually
love
appreciates
it when
this.
she empties the dishwasher. Just the other night, Audrey was there with my son David's fiance, and they were emptying the dishwasher. I didn't say anything because I wanted to escape, because I didn't want to be a part of it. But for some reason, that's just not what I enjoy doing. So I'll tell
He
you.
made no eye contact.
I'll tell you right now, I really appreciate that. Tessa, thank you for emptying the dishwasher. I'll load it, no problem. I'll clean the counters, no problem. I just got an issue with emptying it. I apologize.
And I'll tell you, men, when you do this with your wives, it means the world to us. When Bob says it with words, I love, I value, and appreciate, it means so much.
Another one is this: begin to believe the best in the other person rather than assuming the worst.
It's
You know, that's
so
something you just
easy.
got to write down. You know, because right away something, you know, may have been said, something may, you know, a feeling that you have. Begin to believe the best rather than immediately assuming the worst.
And also, just as a protection, don't be close friends with the opposite sex. And I'm just saying that as a boundary to put in place, that you can be friends as couples, but time alone, you just never know what you're capable. And I'm so thankful that God brought us through this. But I want to protect as many people from the pain that it caused us.
And also be cautious of a prideful heart, where you would say, that would never happen to us.
Right.
This would never be us.
Because that's what I said.
You see, humility.
Yes.
Humility every single time says, Father, I'm dependent
need
on
you,
you,
God.
and I need
need
you.
you.
Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time right here on My New Day.
Bye-bye.